The Theater History Podcast is supported by HowlRound, a Knowledge Commons by and for the theater community. It's available on iTunes and howlround.com. Hi, and welcome to the Theater History Podcast. In episode 5 of the show, we talked with Professor Joel Berkowitz, who spoke about Yiddish theater and how it was still a vibrant part of today's theater scene. Today, we're fortunate to have as our guest one of the people who's responsible for its continued vitality. David Mandelbaum is artistic director and co-founder of New Yiddish Rep in New York City, and he's also in his company's revival of God of Vengeance, which opens at La Mama on December 22nd. David, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Let's talk about this play, God of Vengeance. What is it about? What happens in it?
Well, it's about a brothel owner in a provincial town that lives above his business. The brothel is downstairs. His house is upstairs. He has a daughter. He and his wife, who was a former prostitute, have a daughter who they've raised to be the epitome of a good Jewish girl, and he wants to marry her off to a Torah scholar, and he commissions a scribe to write a Torah that he will offer to her as part of her dowry and make a present of it to her bridegroom. But his plans are foiled by the fact that his daughter has fallen in love with one of the prostitutes. And they run away. They get her back. In the end, what he does is he takes the Torah and he throws the daughter and the wife into the brothel downstairs, and he gives the Torah back to the matchmaker, Reb Eli, who I play. And that's it. It's rather dark, but that's the play in a nutshell.
That's a great summation, and as you were just saying, it's got some content that I think a lot of people today would be surprised to see in a play from the early 20th century. You mentioned the brothel setting, the fact that two of the major characters in the play are lesbians, and they have an onstage kiss. And in addition, at least one of its lead characters says and does things that many in the audience might view as blasphemous. How did people respond to this play when it first premiered in Europe and later in New York City? And what ramifications did those responses have on its theatrical run?
It did not raise too many eyebrows in Europe. It was done in Polish, in Yiddish, in Dutch, in German, in Norwegian as well, Italian. The Italian production apparently was mildly scandalous, but nothing compared to, and it started running here in 1907 and ran pretty steadily. In 1923, the play was done in English, first in Provincetown at the Provincetown Playhouse, then in the Greenwich Village Theater, and then it moved to Broadway. And when it moved to Broadway, it was the cast and the producer were arrested after a couple of weeks. The police came in and arrested them for indecent performing and indecent, and so on and so forth. The irony is that they were turned in by the upright burghers of the Jewish East Side, who thought that this was giving the Jews a bad name. So the complaint was actually made by a rabbi of what was the congregation? I can't remember. But the play went on until they were ultimately found guilty and fined $200 a piece. And then it closed, then it had to close. But it sold tickets for them. I'll say that until it closed. It was done on 42nd Street here in New York at a theater called the Apollo Theater, which still the building is still there. So it's but apparently it stymied the career of Rudolf Schildkraut, who played the lead, the brothel owner. I understand that the idea of Jewish brothel owners is something that an audience today it would find, what's a Jewish brothel owner? In Buenos Aires, in the 20s and 30s, the Jewish brothel owners had their own synagogue. This is, a result of the image of Jewish life has changed because it doesn't exist as it once did. The loss of the Ashkenazic European community. What do we have left except these plays and the literature that came out of there? And this is not portraying something out of the ordinary. There were Jewish brothel owners, and there probably were some in New York, and maybe still are. It's not, but it shocks people. What? That's a Jewish brothel owner. People forget that people like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky and the Louis Lepke and Murder Incorporated, we are not immune to the vices of other people, of all people. So it seems shocking, but it really ought not to be. The lesbian part of the story, I think, much is made of it. But the essence of this story is the conflict between, man and God and morality and can you buy out God? Can you bribe God with a Torah scroll? This is really the heart of the play, I think. But I think the real grit here is this whole idea of trying to atone for something by imposing it on your progeny. And this is, anybody can relate to that. Any young Jewish man or woman can probably relate to that. Perhaps not in this way, but, I know my parents had a certain idea of what they wanted me to become and see me do, and most parents do, and, sometimes it works out. Most of the time it doesn't. So it really focuses this in an extreme case, but I don't think it's out of the ordinary.
It's interesting to hear you say that. One of the things in reading it I thought about was that obviously part of the reason that there is some renewed interest in this play has to do with the fact that Paula Vogel's new Broadway-bound play, Indecent, is a sort of behind-the-scenes story about it. But from what you're saying, there's a lot about this play that really speaks to some of the concerns that still persist well into the 21st century, things that have nothing to do with the fact that it's being dramatized in another contemporary play of our time.
Look, Paula Vogel was intrigued by the love story. She viewed this relationship as a beautiful love story. And that was her focus. Indecent is a very good play. It was very popular. I saw it. And matter of fact, the director of the play, Rebecca Teichman, will be giving a talk back at our January 10th performance, hearing her point of view after seeing the show in Yiddish. That would be a good night to attend. But the Indecent is an incomplete picture of what the show is really about. It doesn't need to be a complete picture. Look, when I first found out about Indecent in August of last year, when I saw that they were doing this play up at Yale, that's when I said, I'm going to do Gottfinderkum. Why not? It's a good opportunity to broaden the audience space for Yiddish theater, which is the whole reason. This is the reason we exist, in order to demonstrate the ability of Yiddish theater to impact on modern culture and the modern theater world. So this was a perfect opportunity to do that. I mean, we did it with Waiting for Godot. We did it with Death of a Salesman. This is another perfect opportunity to try and widen the awareness and give people the understanding that Yiddish theater can still be dramatic theater. It's not always about a musical good time or a nostalgic. There's wonderful theater here, and the tradition of Yiddish theater also was translating modern theater works into Yiddish and doing them. Look, the Volksbühne Yiddish theater, which has been producing for over 100 years and is still active, started its very first show was Enemy of the People, Ibsen's Enemy of the People. So doing the kinds of things that we are doing, translating Beckett and translating Miller. I'll tell you a little secret. We're currently translating Rhinoceros.
I can't imagine why.
It's amazing how well Yiddish fits that play. There are some. We did a reading of the Bald Soprano, the Yiddish translation of it, by Miriam Hoffman. It didn't work. Didn't have it. It wasn't about the translation. It was about the. It just didn't sound right. It didn't fit the play. Rhinoceros is totally it's just the Yiddish fits it so well, and it fits the characters so well, and I think it's going to be fabulous. So we're doing that. We're going to. I would love to. There are a few Yiddish plays on the agenda as well. Awake and Sing is one of the other plays that there's already a wonderful translation by Chavur Paver, who was commissioned to do it by the WPA in 1935. But I'd like to do the Pusta Kretschma, by Peretz Hirschbein. I'd love to do a adaptation of the Dybbuk. I'd love to do a play called Chitin by Leivik. The lexicon is huge. It's immense. People just aren't aware of it because Yiddish theater has been, Fiddler on the Roof, God bless them. But in some respects, they colored the public's awareness of what Yiddish theater was all about. And it's a wonderful musical, and but it doesn't really represent people think that it represents Yiddish theater. It's just a small part, and obviously it came out of the Yiddish literature, which Tevye and the whole business. But it's a shame. The Borscht Belt also had a lot to do with it, but in a way it trivializes the history of Yiddish theater and what Yiddish theater was about.
I wonder if you could talk a bit more about the personal experience. As you mentioned, you're in this production of God of Vengeance. So, we've been talking here about the production. We've been talking about some of the other productions that New Yiddish Rep has done. But what is it like for you as a performer working in the Yiddish language as opposed to English, as opposed to any other language that you might be speaking on stage?
It's a lot more fun. Look, it's hard to characterize. When we do Godot, I play Estragon. Now, I don't think I would have anywhere near the joy doing that in English that I do doing it in Yiddish, because it makes sense in Yiddish. So many people have come. I mean, we did the play in Ireland at a Beckett Festival in Northern Ireland. In the town, Beckett went to a school there in his teens called Portora Royal School. So did Oscar Wilde, as a matter of fact, previously to him. But Beckett was there, and we performed in the auditorium of that school. So Beckett's ghost was hovering over us and watching. His nephew, who is runs the estate, he saw it twice. He saw it there, and then he saw it this last March when we did it in Paris at another Beckett festival. And he was absolutely enamored of the language and rhythms and musicality that it brought to the play. So many Beckettians came up to us, not just me, other members of the cast, said, I've seen this 10 times, and this has added a new level of understanding to me. People came up and said, I never understood it, and now it makes sense. I can see what this is about because it gives it a context. And this is what I am. That's what makes me very proud. The idea that Yiddish theater can make an impact on modern audiences and inform modern theater audiences about class. We're Waiting for Godot is a seminal postmodern work. I guess we're out of postmodern now and into postmodern or whatever you want. But we gave it a new dimension. And people who saw Death of a Salesman, I had people come up to me and say, this is the best production of the show I've ever seen. I'm very proud of that work, and Gut for Nekuma is an attempt to continue that work. And the nice thing about it is that it's a Yiddish play. It was written in 1906 by a 26-year-old Yiddish writer who went on to become one of the great Yiddish novelists. And a great novelist. His novels have been translated into many, many languages and widely read. So, we're going to try and keep that going. We want people to come to our productions because they're going to see interesting theater. They may not walk out snapping their fingers and clapping their hands, but there are other places that they can go to for that. We are the only place they can come to see Yiddish drama on the stage and hear people hear native Yiddish speakers on stage doing the roles. And there's more to it. There's a lot more to it here, especially a play like Gut for Nekuma. It's you've read it, so they'll be able to see something that will make a lasting impression on them.
New Yiddish Rep's production of God of Vengeance runs from December 22nd to January 22nd at La Mama. You can learn more at newyiddishrep.org, and we'll include a link to that site in the show notes, and we'll also include a link to an English translation of God of Vengeance. David, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk about Yiddish theater. So I'm glad we could do this, and thank you for your thoughtful questions, and good luck with the podcast.
If you'd like to continue today's conversation, please visit howlaround.com and follow HowlRound and @TheaterHistory on Twitter. A big thank you to the staff at HowlRound who make this show possible. This week, I'd like to extend particular gratitude to Travis Amiel at HowlRound. As you may have noticed, we've had some technical problems and we've missed a few episodes recently, But we're back on track, and in large part it's because of his efforts. So thank you, Travis, for all of your assistance. Our theme music is The Black Crook Gallop, which comes to us courtesy of the New York Public Library Libretto Project and Adam Roberts. Thanks as well to Tip Kress, who designed our logo. And finally, thank you for listening.